movie do you think you've seen the most?
Cable Guy.
Really?
Yeah.
Was there like a summer that you watched it all the time?
Oh my God. It was when I was growing up, my brother's best friends had seen Dumb and Dumber 9 million times and quoted the whole film. And since we couldn't compete with them, we'd figured we'd go our own path and make our have our flick we could do that with, and that became Cable Guy. I've seen it well over 100 times.
I wasn't expecting that, but it's a good choice.
Yeah.
You know, you've made a lot of different movies, and I'm imagining.
What were you expecting? Just by curious, a little.
Oh no!
Cool Hand Luke, or
oh no, not believe me. I've heard every possible answer. The best is when you get someone saying like, Close Encounters and Frozen 2, and I'm like, wait, what? And then I realize they have kids.
Yeah.
But I've heard everything, like so many things. Nothing. And by the way, there's no right answer. It's just
no, of course not. I mean, a strong second would probably be Cool Hand Luke or Hut or so. But yeah, Cable Guy. Sorry.
No, it's great. You've worked on so many different movies. When you look back on the many projects you've worked on, what ended up being a lot more challenging than you expected?
Pan was very challenging. We were on a stage the whole time. Isolated outside of London. I was staying in a hotel like an hour outside of London. And we're working on these stages outside of Bedford, which is where they had built like the Zeppelin. And so these massive stages that basically had their own ecosystem where from the frozen ice over the winter, in the spring it would rain inside these things, and they were just massive. But 5 or 6 months in these things, working on very heavy special effects kind of film. Other than that, oddly enough, was Mudbound. Very, very quick shoot and emotionally draining. The weather was draining out there in New Orleans, and it was a very dramatic piece. But the weather definitely added to that out there.
I looked up all the great directors you've worked with, from the Coen brothers, Ang Lee, Joe Wright, Lee Daniels. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. I'm curious, is there a common trait that all these gifted directors you've worked with have, or is each time you stand on set working for someone like this, is it like just a completely different experience due to the way they like to run the set?
Yeah, I think it's really been a completely different experience, and that's why I've enjoyed striving to work with all of them. Being able to work with all of them has been such a gift. Seeing all the different variations of techniques, the way they run their sets, what they crave within their performances, sort of either honesty, naturalism, just comfortability and relaxation. Yeah, it's interesting. Some, working with someone like Steven Soderbergh, where he shoots, 15 to 20 pages a day, 1 to 2 takes. I mean, I was so excited because I was, previously aware of that process, and I was so eager to do it. Flying by the seat of your pants. Everybody that he hires comes to set completely prepared, and you're not really given the chance to second guess yourself. Granted, on the project I worked with him on, this project Mosaic, I think the totality of the script was something around the 500 pages or so that we shot within 4 months. The different processes I love, I respect, and admire them all. And I'm fortunate to get to experience some.
I actually watched you work on the set of Tron Legacy. I was at the End of the Line Club and got to see what that was like. I feel like the film has gained in stature since it came out. When I talk to people about it, people genuinely, like, a lot of people really respond to that movie. Do you feel like it's like, do people still want to talk about Tron? What do you remember about that shoot?
And when you're talking about tricky shoots as well, because a lot of the things that we were doing creatively, aesthetically, technologically was the first of its kind. And so the first one exploring the trial and error of what's going to work or not. A lot, the suits, for instance, were very challenging suits that at the beginning, because every light was sort of hand glued on inch by inch. I mean, it would take us 2.5 hours in the morning just to put the suits on, and then the lack thereof, being able to bend, move, this and that. The way you were constricted within it made it to be a very tricky process. But I love it. I haven't seen it. I'll definitely stop on it when it's on once in a while, and have my moments of the remembrance of past times. But it was going to be working with Joe on it. The studio was so excited. It was just, we knew we were doing something revolutionary with it. And so, I've been so proud of it, so honored to be a part of it. And, working with my man Jeff Bridges, the old dude, and Olivia, we all became quite the family on that one. So I have nothing but fond memories.
Joe and I did a screening in IMAX Laser 3D, I think like 2 years ago, and it played like a rock concert. We played the volume super high for like 100 fans, and we did it anyway. The point is, you were missed, but man, it played huge. We had such a good time that night.
I will say one of my fond memories of that shoot was I had one of those prank pens, one of those gag pens that if you click the top of it, because the tip wasn't there, it would electrocute you. And I went around first. I started with Daft Punk when they were on set and asked them to sign my script, and they took a good zap. And I was raised this sort of merry prankster, and so I continued to walk around the rest of the day trying to get as many cast and crew members as I could with the old electrocuting pen. So that was one. I think it was maybe 3/4 way through the shooting process, and so whatever you can do to sort of reinvigorate those spirits and sort of bring the energy and the morale back up, I was all for it.
I could talk to you about Daft Punk for a long time, but let's jump into why I get to talk to you today. A lot of people don't realize that Billie Holiday was a very early civil rights, like she was pushing civil rights well before most people realize, and with her song Strange Fruit. And you think about musicians nowadays, and they're scared to sometimes, talk about certain issues. But here she is in the late 30s, singing a song like that. Can you sort of talk about the fact that how early she was, trying to address civil rights?
Look, there was a lot that I was unaware of. When I read the script, it was an educational experience. The book Chasing the Scream, Johann Nari, that this was so softly based off of, was very in-depth. A lot of the material that Lee had sent me about my character in particular, Harry Anslinger, was completely unaware of. Her experience and the heavy opposition, malicious heavy opposition she faced from the US government for singing Strange Fruit, was unbelievable. For being an addict, my character's obsession with arresting her for those two things was just it was hard to process and fathom, because I was such a fan of Billie Holiday and have been. I mean, I listened to her religiously when I was shooting on the road. Her CDs and vinyls made up a lot of my time of research for that film I was so invested in. I was so unaware of Strange Fruit being a civil rights movement song, that the lyrics were about the act of lynching, anti-lynching. I was completely unaware. And it just made me realize that what I was embarking on with Lee Daniels on this journey was going to be something so powerful. You know, what Lee has gifted everybody in making this film is what I realized was she was so silenced back then. You know, instead of being sent to a hospital for being an addict, she was sent to prison to detox. When she got out, her cabaret card was taken from her, so she couldn't even sing in public. He put so many restraints on her that it was almost as if she would utter a breath, it was illegal. And so the gift that Lee has granted this the new generations and generations to come, and the Billie Holiday legacy, is that now she can once again have a voice, and people will know the story because it's so educational.
I thought that Andra did such a great job.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and Lee manages to craft these performances from his lead actors and his supporting cast as well, that he always manages to craft these great performances. Can you sort of talk about collaborating with him and maybe what how is he able to do this on all of his movies?
You know, he sort of goes through and he watches everything. He handpicked everyone. You know, he sent me, before the script was written, he sent me this big thick stack of material on Harry Anslinger a year before we started shooting, maybe more. And I was very intrigued. I'd never met with Lee before. We'd known, we'd had a lot of friends in common, Evan Ross being one of them, Terrence Howard, and what have you. And so I met with him on this material. And when I first saw a picture of Anslinger, a younger version of him, he kind of looked like a Al Capone, and like an older version kind of looked like a Hitchcock. And I was curious. I was like, man, you want me for this guy? You know, I was almost a half between confused and honored. And I heard him out and sent me more info in depth on the true story, and really wanted to get down to the gist of sharing to the world Billie's real story. And Lady Sings the Blues that Diana Ross had done, Harry Anslinger was still alive, so they couldn't, it was too sensitive a subject for him to tackle, this side of the story, this revelation. And so, I was honored to play the part, to be a piece of one of Lee's wonderful, collaborative, creatively artistic puzzles that he time and time again formulates.
On that note, I got to go. Really great to talk to you again. I wish you nothing but the best.
I'll see you on the next one, man.